According to a new study from MarketWatch, a full 70% of employees are bracing for layoffs in some way.
Superintendents across the state say if they don't get more money from the state, layoffs and massive cuts are the next step.
Given our dire financial situation,
this has probably been the worst budget I've had to do as a superintendent.
Despite headlines from MarketWatch like this that say jobless claims inch up to 230,000, but still no sign of rising layoffs, which is absolute nonsense. And I'm going to show you guys today a Challenger report that's stating month over month there are 193% more job cuts month over month in August. And in addition to that, for education job cuts, it has increased 222% year over year. So today we're going to ask questions like, why is that happening? What can we do about it, if anything? And we're going to go deep under the hood. I got some great stuff lined up from Mitch. Mitch is going to blow you guys away with some of the math he's done. And before I continue, before we go into the teacher layoffs, we'll ask what other municipalities are suffering, the impacts of property tax. I want Mitch to give you guys a couple words about what he's been talking about the links to the data, how to stay connected, more importantly, how to access all of the math that he's sharing with you. Mitch, first of all, good morning. The market's not even open yet. Happy Friday, sir. What do you got for us today?
Good morning. So with regard to the last video that we did, it was the label is 1,139,000 is how much you owe. Don't get hung up on the size of the debt. Several people said, well, is it 163 trillion? Is it 250 trillion? It doesn't matter. It isn't going to get paid back anyway. It can't get paid back based on the math. The point was, look at the context. And what we've done, you may not be aware of, is at the bottom of these videos on the YouTube site are links. And those links are constantly updated. So just as if we did that video on the 1,139,000, which is crucial to send to your friends, family, and neighbors, the more people that know, the better, are links. And those links change from time to time and are updated. So we actually even updated, due to a problem of formula inside of Excel, we actually updated one of those spreadsheets, which was the loan amortization schedule. And I ended up having to break it down by hand. So there's numbers in there that are really, really very interesting, and that people should remember to go and look at those links because it ties it all together. That was it.
That's right, guys. So again, don't forget to go to the video description, access those links, and look at the evidence, join the cause. Now let's jump right in and let's first figure out, why are there layoffs? What's going on? Why aren't the headlines telling us what's really happening under the hood? I'm going to start with this article, Mitch, from USA Today. This came out in September, and this states, with COVID-19 relief gone, teachers are losing their jobs. It's a blow to diversity. And I'm only going to read a couple paragraphs here, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. Now, there are thousands of teachers and school staffers across the U.S. at risk of losing their jobs as districts balance their budgets and prepare for the shortfall after COVID-19 relief money expires. Districts have been scrambling to put unfunded staffers into different roles. The reality is that many students will lose contact with adults with whom they have built relationships in recent years. The Biden administration granted schools $189.5 billion over the past few years through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund under the American Rescue Plan. School officials have until the end of September, you guys, the end of this month, to commit the remainder of their money, and districts will no longer be able to pay for non-teaching staff roles with the money after September 30th. Schools nationwide use most of their relief fund money to pay for classroom teachers and support staff, according to the U.S. Department of Education analysis of district spending for fiscal year of 2022. Districts across the country are now laying off recently hired educators, teacher assistants, counselors, justice coordinators, and other key staff at schools, and they're scrambling to find ways to retain them. Before we go into the Challenger report, Mitch, which in my opinion is so revealing. I mean, it's shocking how revealing this report is, the Challenger report. But before I do, can you explain, and do you feel like as a result of no more extra money, right? Maybe the fraud from property tax isn't enough, but do you think that as a result of no more COVID bailout, no more COVID money, that the layoffs the education, the teacher layoffs will spiral out of control. Will it get worse?
Yes, it will get worse. And the person who wrote that article conjoined two issues, which shows in reality what the problem is. When they start saying, well, you have to keep us hired because of diversity, let's get something straight. The theory of diversity in and of itself costs money. The person who's best qualified for the job should have that job. Part of the reason we're in this mess is because of the bloated nonsense being spent on budgets that have absolutely nothing to do with the best person getting the job. So the diversity in and of itself, you can literally see this and what this truly means if you go and look up the Tarrant Appraisal District and the meetings that they've had over the last few weeks, when the school districts themselves showed up in mass demanding that the Tarrant Appraisal District not freeze the real estate taxes and that the annual pricing of the homes must go up in order for those school districts not to go bankrupt. Therein lies the problem of diversity. It has nothing to do with the issue at hand. It's costing you money from a bunch of fools that literally want to have a job that have no business having a job. And therein lies the problem with that article that you just wrote. It's clear. When the school districts show up in mass, they don't give a damn about the children. They're there to put your money into their pocket.
And they certainly make it about the children, though, at least on the pictures. And anytime they go into debate, you know, they always have pictures of my children and my neighbor's children. It's never their own children. And they're always begging for money. And we'll get there. But before I get there, Mitch, let me take the viewers to the Challenger Report. The Challenger Report just came out September. This is for August of 2024. And a few things I'm going to read on this that's really, again, this is really shocking. And it's not just tech jobs. This is going to go over multiple jobs, but I'm going to hone in on the teacher jobs. Now, U.S.-based employers announced 75,891 job cuts in August alone. That is a 193% increase from the 25,885 job cuts announced 1 month prior. That's insane. I want to point out a few things. Now, obviously, here's technology jobs. Obviously, tech jobs absolutely exploded. In the recent months here, you can see that in this chart. But I want to go down again to education. Organizations in the education sector, including schools and universities, as well as vendor education providers, have announced 25,396 job cuts in 2024 so far. This is up, okay, 222% higher year over year from August 2023. That is a massive jump. That is a massive, massive indication that there is something wrong under the hood. I wanted to freeze here just for 1 second because these are the top industries with job cuts. And I wanted to point out, Mitch, take a look at this here. What is that? Government jobs. All those government jobs propping up the numbers. And now that is the second leading niche of job losses. And it's very interesting because look at the progression, Mitch. In 2023, this is government job cuts. In 2023, there was 1,279. Fast forward to 2024, and we're not even done with 2024, Mitch. There's 37,616. I think that there might be something bad happening with government jobs. As far as the top states with these job cuts, California is leading the way at 108,000. This is year to date. Texas is number 2, New York number 3, District of Columbia number 4, and Ohio number 5. Take a look at this. This is insane, Mitch. This is job cut announcement report. This is by quarters. And what I want to do is I want to compare where we're at right now compared to the GFC. It's crazy. Okay, first of all, keep your eyes on Q1. Okay, so Q1, first of all, both Q1s of 2023 and 2024 were really horrible, which again shouldn't surprise the people that have been paying attention. But right now, as far as job cuts, Q1 of 2024, right here, let me move this down a little bit, 257,000. And when I go up, you guys, other than the COVID lockdowns, okay, and last year, so let's go past the COVID lockdowns because obviously that was unnatural. The last time we hit that many layoffs in the first quarter was 2009 great financial crisis. In fact, when we entered recession in 2008, remember, we entered recession, I think it was at the end of 2007. Look, we have more job cuts right now than when we did when we entered the great financial crisis recession. Mitch, having showed you all that information again, and we started this video out with that headline from MarketWatch, and now we're reading the Challenger report. We have more job cuts than 2008. A lot of people have been talking about layoffs. A lot of people talking about unemployment. The Fed is now more concerned with the labor market, as they should have been from the beginning, than inflation, which they kind of correspond. But can you explain to the viewers how it takes a very long time, Mitch, for the job market and the labor market to come back to balance after the layoffs start snowballing? And can you explain why it takes so long?
Okay, what you just went through is a lot, so bear with me for a second. First, using children as a political tool in the eyes and lenses of cameras is despicable. Second, these issues that you've gone through from the Challenger report, as well as what's happening to all these people who are being laid off, as well as teachers that should be receiving more pay for qualified teachers, are all linked at the hip. So how are they linked? Well, the ramifications of stuffing massive quantities of M2 cash supply to the point where you've created an inflation causes people to say, well, we've got excess capacity, we've got money, let's go higher to try and expand. These things are absolutely linked. And the problem is that, as I mentioned before, in math, there's something called smoothing. And smoothing means you're telling the truth. Well, or it's an effect of telling the truth. So the reality is that when you've got the Fed pumping money, then you have the executives in the C-suite hiring more and more people that shouldn't have jobs because those people aren't qualified. They're just trying to fill buckets. You've in fact created a process where you are not smoothing. You are not telling the truth. It's artificial. And the ramifications of that is that you're jacking around with people's lives. You're giving jobs to people that shouldn't be having those jobs, should have other jobs that they wish to have. But it's all because of the monkeying and the interference caused by the government. In other words, it's completely artificial inducement. That's how these things are all linked at the hip. If you say, look, we got to have teachers who are qualified. Amen, absolutely, and they should be well paid. The problem is you're being interfered with from complete nonsense that mathematically has no right to exist, i.e., well, we have this diversification policy in our company or in our school district. I will be the first person to say that anybody that promotes a diversification policy based on what it is in politics should be fired. So diversification, you do not have the right to discriminate. Discriminate's a different issue than diversification. Diversification is taking your money and manipulating it for some other purpose. That is the problem with what you're seeing. And that is exactly how all these things are linked at the hip. Nobody has the right to say and turn somebody down based on the color of their skin. That is not diversification.
Right. And how long do you think it would take, once again, the public starts getting aware, mass layoffs happen even clearer to society? How long, Mitch, does it usually take for the labor market to heal itself?
It won't heal itself quickly this time. This time we're in for something that's completely unseen. That's the reason why we've been jumping up and down on these videos saying, look, you've got to get in front of the marketplace. What you're starting to see now is the marketplace is moving. And eventually when the marketplace wakes up, like we said before, and the bonds get active, this stuff is going to come unwound. When you see these school districts show up at the Tarrant Appraisal District in mass, they're panicking because they know they don't have the money. Give us this money, keep raising these taxes, or we are bankrupt. No, you are bankrupt today. Never mind tomorrow. So again, these things are all linked at the hip, and people have been fraudulently induced as a direct result of the amount of money that has been pumped into this system. So you've been politically induced and you've been fraudulently induced. There's a real cost of lying. There's a real cost, just like this diversity nonsense. There's a real cost. You can quantify it. And now you're starting to see the ramifications of that showing up in these reports. This is going to get bad.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen multiple recessions, and it take like 10 years for the labor market to get better.
The smoothing effect, look at it this way. If you want to pay your teachers more money, which you should, so teachers, jobs, whatever, just focus on the teachers for a second. Can you imagine how much more money there would be to hire the best teachers if they were not having to jack with all these other, well, I got this diversity policy, I've got this many supervisors that I've got to hire. Get rid of the fat and you get what it is that you want to pay for. You, the parents, have to get involved at the school district level, but everybody at this point, this is all hands on deck, as we've been saying, because of this exact problem. The more people that get involved, the faster we will come to a resolution. And as I keep saying, if the market gets in front of this and the people cannot get in front of it, this is all going to come unwound. So yes, we're in for, as I said, we're in for pain no matter what. But this problem, you get what you pay for. Get rid of the fat and you get more of what you pay for. Give the teachers who are truly qualified the best jobs and pay them well. And that's on every business. This crap that happened at the C-suite at UPS is insanity. It's the board of directors that should be thrown to the street.
It is unwinding as well, Mitch. I mean, we see that when we look at articles like this. This is from the Hour. CT State Community College first year saw layoffs to close, 33.6 million deficit. More opportunities. Insane. It goes on. Budget cuts begin to surface at California State University. And this is saying LA officials said all divisions will need to cut spending, Mitch, by 12.4%. It goes on. School districts keep tax levy at 3.06, estimates $1.35 million in new revenue. So this is insane. I mean, they're trying to tax more of us. Why Massachusetts schools are having an extremely difficult financial year. Wisconsin schools to ask voters, this is a good one, to fund over $1 billion next week. So they're asking the taxpayers, but unfortunately, like Mitch and I are explaining to you, the taxpayers are broke. We can't afford anything else. And so according to this report, the schools that understand that they're going to have a shortfall with their budgets in 2025 and 2026, you guys, they're going to start laying off teachers. You see that right here. 47% of those schools said that they're going to lay off teachers before other staff. You see that right there. Classroom teachers, 47%. That is absolutely insane. People are like, well, why are you talking about property tax? I don't own a house, right? But property tax overvaluation and fraud affects every single person. I'm about to throw up a chart where Mitch actually shows you guys how many haircuts it would take to pay for the property tax, how many meals a restaurant would have to serve to pay for property tax. And the reason why we're pointing this out is because the states and municipalities have hit a wall, and that wall is called bankruptcy.
California, that one school district had their hand out for $3 per hundred of valuation. And that $3 per hundred of valuation as compared to, say, Texas at $2 is a 30% increase to fund their school district carrying a whole bunch of fat inside of the system.
And those houses are valued way higher than Texas, Mitch.
They have blown so many budgets, they can't stop. I mean, it's the ultimate definition of drug addicts. I mean, these people, it's really bad. It's just insane. But that school district alone is a 30% increase. That's what they've got their hand out for. That shows you that it's not sustainable.
Also shows the viewers too that it's not, I mean, it's outside of Texas. I mean, it's actually outside of the US. We got New Zealand, Canada. It's not just in Texas. This is how the world's falling apart. The US is falling apart right underneath our feet. And if you're not watching that, you may be blindsided. So you ready to go over the chart?
Yes.
If you can, explain to the viewers what we're looking at.
So I started this video today explaining that we update charts below the videos. And the reason we do that is because just like we're doing here, we figured out that there's a way to break it down and help everybody understand at the mom and pop level how this affects their lives on a daily basis. So this chart is a ramification of that theory. Well, if you simply take a retail shopping center, so next time you go to the retail shopping center, you see a restaurant, a nail salon, a hair salon, whatever, those people inside those businesses are responsible for paying real estate tax. Even if it's a triple net lease, that means that the tenant pays. So it's a pass through even on a triple net. On a gross lease in an office building, it's a gross lease, but they're paying the real estate taxes. In multifamily, you, the multifamily tenant, are in fact paying, give or take, around 30% of your rent in the form of real estate tax. You just don't know it because you don't receive the real estate tax bill, the landlord does. Well, in this particular chart, what we're showing is that a restaurant would have to sell roughly 292 meals on a gross dollar basis just to cover off the real estate tax. And this doesn't even talk about the profitability of those meals, as in what is the actual cost of goods being produced.
Yeah.
This is just straight gross dollar amount.
Yeah,
That's
dang.
an awful lot of tickets to sell.
And it says, and Mitch, I see, and I'm sorry to interrupt, I see just for the viewers that you actually also did the average sell amount for the viewers as well, which is the $45 right there. Is that right?
Right. So
Okay.
what happens is if you say, this is about the overage, never mind the real value of the property. So if the value is overvalued, i.e. we go to California, as an example, that 292 would go up another 30%. So you see the problem, these things are truly identical. It's a question of jurisdiction. So you have two denominators, one of which would be the jurisdiction and the other one of which would be the value of the tax. So your 292 in Texas versus 392 in California.
Right. It's more expensive in places like California. It would require more meals to be sold. And obviously, if they're paying 13 grand hypothetically before it's protested in taxes, obviously they got to raise their prices on the consumer or they're going to go bankrupt.
Well, yes, and now that's full circle, and that's called inflation. So again, what I said several videos ago, these cats have figured out how to tax inflation. Your house value didn't go up. Your house value is an illusion, right?
They're taxing inflation, Mitch.
My house went up 61%. There's no math on this planet to justify that when in the same subdivision, there are houses that went down 4%. There is no uniformity of application of law, period. There is no law being followed, period. So if my house went up 61%, okay, that's inflation. What are they doing? They're taxing the inflation. It's complete nonsense. They made up the inflation. The true inflation is only, according to the U.S. Treasury, true inflation by their numbers is hovering around 5.4%. Complete nonsense. But nonetheless, that's their numbers, okay? So how do you get 65%?
I was looking at the clothing store. Is it right that the clothing store would need to sell 307 transactions just to pay their taxes? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And then when I look at, restaurant number 2, same thing, restaurant number 2, 211 meals. How many meals are restaurants serving, Mitch? Isn't that a lot of meals?
Well, yeah. So the answer to your question is yes, but it gets worse in that I can't get involved in estimating people's cost of goods. So a typical restaurant, watch this for a second, and we can talk about it. But a typical restaurant may have an EBITDA of 12%. And inside of that EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization are the cost of goods. So if you want to focus on the restaurant, the restaurant has a hamburger. Hamburger has lettuce, tomatoes, depending which part of the country you're in, mustard or ketchup. So, and those are cost of goods. Well, also part of cost of goods is your overhead. It's your real estate tax, it's your heat, it's your air conditioning, it's your staff. So restaurants should and can break down their cost of goods to determine what that is being served and how much profit there is. So if you say that profit is, call it 12% on a hamburger, think of how many hamburgers have to be produced in order to hit $9,000 in profit to offset those real estate taxes. Right.
Yeah,
that's why we stuck to the gross amount. It's easier to explain than it is trying to figure out actual estimated cost of goods.
I want to point one more thing out as well. Basically, these columns on the left and on the right. So, what Mitch showed here is how important it is to protest. It doesn't matter if you're a homeowner, doesn't matter if you're a business owner, doesn't even matter if you're a renter. Help your landlord and maybe you'll get lower rent. And look at what Mitch did. So before he protested, they had an assessed value on all of those properties at 2.6 million. But through his efforts, you guys, he got that down to 930,000. That's crazy. So you went from a tax liability of $45,000 down all the way to $15,000. Mitch, that's why I keep saying, talk to your landlord, because everyone wins now. everyone wins now. If the liability is $25,000 lower, then I don't have to charge my consumers as much. And you put that here. So instead of on restaurant one needing 292 transactions to cover taxes, all they need is 102. Some would say that's still a lot, but it's a lot less. And then again, the clothing store goes from 307 transactions to 107 transactions.
A few weeks ago, I came across a picture, and I've been thinking about that picture until yesterday morning because I finally had a solution. So if you think of all the inputs that simply the production of milk involves, that's what I drafted up here in this graphic. So milk is produced obviously from the cow, and from the cow, it goes to harvesting because you have to milk the cow. So that requires a building. Then it goes into storing into silos where the milk is stored temporarily, and then it gets refrigerated and it gets produced. And then you've got transportation, and then you've got testing labs and processing labs, and then you have packaging, and then you have selling at the grocery store. Well, isn't it interesting that every single one of those inputs, without exception, has a real estate tax on it? So I kept coming back to the word smoothing. Well, if you were telling the truth in all of these, based on the value and the cost of goods sold, and not ignoring uniform standards of professional appraisal practice in all of these instances, including the retail building and the milk, then you would have no inflation because you would be telling the truth. By ignoring the smoothing and not telling the truth, you have created, in fact, hyperinflation in real estate that simply isn't true under any stretch of the law, because the CADs aren't doing appraisals under any definition in law. That is why every single thing that you touch, when you buy something, it's got a real cost associated with it. And that could be anything. You could buy a widget from Amazon. Amazon's got a truck. Amazon's got a warehouse. The manufacturer, that person that sold it to Amazon, has got a building. Yeah. Anybody in the United States is being subjected to this straight up fraud, and all of this stuff is connected. You've been manipulated into hyperinflation, and that's what you've got in the real estate. Coming right back on all these jobs, this stuff is literally connected.
So just to reiterate, what you're showing here is milk from a cow to a store has 9 layers of real estate. I'm not talking about sales tax. I'm not talking about environment tax, but milk from a store has 9 layers of real estate tax. Yeah. 9 layers of real estate tax. So I would say that, overvaluation and real estate tax fraud affects every single person. And the thing is, Mitch, is like, we know that people can't afford to pay this. We know that the schools and municipalities are broke, because take a look at what we're finding out about police. Police layoffs start in Middleport due to budget issue. Do you guys it all has to do with the budget. Oakland City budget deficit could force OPD layoffs. It's time lawmakers look to abolish property taxes in Florida. I thought you'd like that, Mitch. The reality is many municipalities can start going bankrupt. In fact, I would say potentially all municipalities are already bankrupt. But can you explain the shape of the municipalities? And also, Mitch, do you think we should abolish property taxes?
Municipalities, generally speaking, are better run than the school districts. The school districts are running amok. There's no other way to describe it, because we just simply haven't seen one in this entire course of doing these videos that is doing anything right, just like the CADs. So the school districts, to be clear, own the central appraisal districts. The central appraisal districts are committing fraud on a mass scale, period, end of paragraph. That's what the evidence shows, done. The school districts are the recipients of stolen property, which is that money. So at a minimum, those people who signed an oath at the school district level, just like those people who sign an oath at the central appraisal district level, are committing third-degree felonies. It gets a lot worse from there. Time will tell whether the DAs prosecute on this stuff or not. However, what I've been saying, and what is clearly in that milk graphic and in that real estate graphic of the retail strip center, think of it this way. If you eliminate property taxes in favor of a uniform state's sales tax, what have you done? Well, what you have done is gotten rid of all the fat in the middle that have jobs that literally should not exist. You've gotten rid of all the manipulators. They're not entitled to a job, at least not in this department, in this world. So the central appraisal districts go away. The ability for the school districts to take money that isn't theirs in the form of bonds that cannot be paid back stops. You get rid of the fat. So the sale, it's not that taxes don't have to be paid, but the uniform states sales tax ensures that the money is going where it's supposed to go and gets rid of all the fat in the middle, because the budgets are now visible. You can't see the spaghetti bowl of bonds. I mean, I tried, and we don't have the horsepower. In the case of Louisville Independent School District, it would take a forensic accountant a month to peel through that crap. So I didn't want to dance down that road other than the handful of bonds that we looked at, but this is what we found, and we found it consistently. So we grabbed 5, 10 bonds from several school districts across the state of Texas, and it's uniform in the fact that, yeah, these bonds aren't being paid back and they're being rolled up and rolled out. So it's cumulative compounding on the bonds. Stop that nonsense, make this stuff visible. And actually, believe it or not, I got an email from KW, Keller Williams, this morning saying, how do we get our hands on these bonds? We'll do the work. And that was kind of interesting. That's from a realtor. So I told them what to do, but they're going to have to do it under Freedom of Information Act in order to get it. In other words, it's not readily available. So you're being lied to and you're being manipulated, and we're going to hide the evidence from you so that you can't get it. And even the central appraisal districts, a lot of them have shut information off that you can't even, the property owners can't even get access to. That's not the way this is supposed to be. So they've destroyed the idea of smoothing. They've created hyperinflation in the real estate, and every single layer of manufacturing process has got a building connected to it that's all part of the same problem, which is the hyper real estate. It's all connected. And anything that touches this fraud has got to stop. And the only way to stop that fraud is simply say, that's it. No more real estate tax. And it's going to be a uniform states sales tax. And then everything is visible to everybody.
Let me ask you something. I mean, do you ever think that we'll actually abolish property taxes? Do you think that's a real possibility?
I don't see another solution. You can't keep this going because you can't keep stealing money. The money isn't there to steal. And the fraud that is indicative of this system, as has clearly now been proven, not just in the state of Texas, but pretty well everywhere that we're getting people responding. It's at least one of 48 states at this point. It's clear. These things are real. So yes, real estate tax must be eliminated. I do not see another solution.
I appreciate your time today. Happy Friday to you, Mitch. Don't work too hard, which is an impossibility. And I just wanted to end telling the viewers, if you want to know what's going on in the housing market, I have a free course, but more importantly, fighting property tax. We have a course. It's about 80% done. It's in the link. If you're a realtor, you're watching this, teach that course to your community. If you're a homeowner that wants to stay proactive and help people, teach your homeowners association and all of your neighbors how this works so that we can force the hand of the state officials and the states to confront the fraud, to confront the fact that as homeowners, we're getting robbed. It's not just the layoffs. We're also going bankrupt, owning our houses and paying these property taxes. And those property taxes aren't even enough. The schools are still going bankrupt. So it's a waste of money. It's a complete waste of money. Anyways, Mitch, always appreciate your time. You guys don't forget to go into the links, comment below, share the video. And if you're out there investing in real estate, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.